Hey, this is going to be a quick video of something that I actually don't really enjoy doing, but it's necessary, and that is editing. So I enjoy the process of creating the books. I enjoy the process of writing, of building the characters, the relationships. I love that part. I do not enjoy the tiny little details that I have to fix. I don't enjoy going back through and finding missing commas and making sure that all the quotation marks are the same. That's not something that I find pleasure in, but it's necessary. I like my books to be the best that they can be, so we spend a lot of time editing. That's just how it is. But this is my breakdown of my process. Now, this process does evolve as the AIs get better, but this is the actual breakdown of what I do right now. And, if it works for you, great. If your process is different, that's absolutely fine. This is a starting place so that you can bring in your own process, you can evaluate things for yourself, see what you like, see what you don't like, and go from there. This is not the absolute you have to do this my way. Nothing on my channel is you have to do it my way. And this is what works for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Find your own path. If you take something from a video and then ignore the rest of it, you still took something from the video. That's okay with me. I'm not here to tell you that there's only one way to do something, because there's never just one way. So, my rough process estimate, and this is after years of being published, both, indie, small press, medium press, working with editors, working with beta readers, having my stuff handed back to me, going through the process, doing it all again, knowing what's expected. I estimate 1 hour of generating prose to 2 hours of editing. Your process may be a lot longer. That's okay. As long as you go through the process and do the best that you can on edits, that's absolutely fine. This is also my process without relying on any human editors or beta readers. Now, if you have human editors and human beta readers that you enjoy working with, that's great. I do too. However, I'm also someone who, first of all, I produce a lot. So if I was constantly like, hey, I need this edited, I need this edited, I need this edited, my editors and beta readers would be like, well, I have a 6-month backlog from all of your other books that you've given me. That's not something that works for me. Honestly, it's not. I don't spend 6 months on one book. I don't spend a year perfecting something. I spend, the time that it takes to actually do the thing, and then I get it done, and then I'm on to the next one. These are not my babies. I am not overly attached to them. I used to be, but then I was like, you know what? I treat it like a business, and my business is not being attached to one book that took me 3 years. My business is, let's produce more, let's get books out there, let's get royalties, let's make money. So, with that being said, I like instant feedback. I like instant edits, and I like being able to go through a book in days rather than months. We're also starting with, think of it like a triangle that's upside down. So we start big picture. The big picture is you just finished the book. The very bottom one is we're doing line edits. So think of it like that. The smaller, the things that we are focusing on. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're not going to sit there and do line edits on, say, the first chapter when the AI is like, hey, your first chapter is not very strong at all. It's a good try, but your first chapter is actually not a very good and strong pull. It's not a hook. So at that point, we're like, okay, we need to completely redo the first chapter, but you spent 2 hours doing line edits on it. Well, that's 2 hours that you're not going to get back, and that's 2 hours that you spent on something that you're now deleting. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to get into kind of a rut and feel like, well, why did I waste all this time? You didn't waste this time. because we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're going to start with, can you actually see my entire book? Can you go through and tell me everything that happens in this book? If you can, great. If you can't, I need to find another program. Honestly, I love Cloud Projects for being able to actually do all of these things. So, say you wrote the book in something else. Say, say you used it in Open Router. That's okay. You wrote the book in Open Router. I've done that. I enjoy it. It's fine. But now, I would say go use the $20 a month for Cloud Projects, just because you're going to get a lot of organizational help. It's going to make a lot of sense. So, Cloud Projects, you go pay the $20, you go in, and honestly, you don't have to. You can absolutely do this without Cloud Projects. It's just easiest for me for organization, because with Cloud Projects, you can upload the entire book at once. It has the ability to see the entire book. It can reference any part of it. And to me, that's really helpful, and that's worth paying, because then I'm not bouncing around, and I'm not like, okay, are you actually seeing any part of this book? Because I've done that, and I'm like, what chapter are you actually referencing, because you're not in the right chapter? Cloud Projects, I don't have that issue. So, in Cloud Projects, you start a book, you put it in, then you're like, okay, I would start my beta reading questions with one thread. I would start my, is this relationship, does this make sense, in one thread. All of those questions become one thread. That way you can keep track, and it makes it super easy to organize. Now that you know that your AI can read the entire book, I start with my 10 weaknesses. If I just say, what are the weaknesses, it'll give me a couple. It's normally pacing, structure, things like that. Give me a list. The AI loves the lists. Make it give you a list. Don't give it like 100. Don't say 100. It won't do it right. I want details, and I want a nice solid number that I can actually work with. So 10 is good. But say it gives you pacing. Normally it gives me pacing, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Some of the pacing in the middle is slow. That's fine. But where is the pacing off? Give me specifics. Tell me how to fix it. Give me examples. You tell me that my pacing's off in chapter 4? Great. I want examples. I want to know why it's off, and I want to know how to fix it. Puppy bear, you're okay. Is the beginning strong enough? Is the ending satisfying? I write mostly love stories, so I go, hey, is the love story compelling? Child, you're okay. Analyze my plot structure. Identify basic plot holes. Tell me my character arcs. Is everything there? Does it make sense? Check for consistency. Does my guy start out really evil and then all of a sudden he's like, yay, happiness, glitter? No, we're not doing that. He needs to stay evil until it makes sense for him to be a little nicer. Or maybe he has no redemption arc. Maybe he's just evil until the very end. That's okay too. Review your world building elements. Do they all make sense? If they don't, tell me how to fix it. Tell me where it doesn't make sense. Don't just say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense. No, ask the AI where you can fix it. Ask it for examples of how to fix it. If you need brainstorming ideas, bounce them back and forth with the AI. That's why it's there. Because your human beta readers can say, hey, well, this magic system doesn't make sense. And then you're like, well, how do I fix it then? And you're like, well, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I'm your beta reader. That's great. They're right. They're not the writer. You are. But you have the AI who is like, okay, well, your magic system's a little inconsistent. And you're like, okay, then how to fix it? Here's 10 ways that it can be fixed. Cool. Help me implement it. There you go. Find your inconsistencies in your character names, places, timelines, or locations. Super important. But I also ask for all the characters, their relationships to each other, and the locations. This way you can find out, hey, the AI named 3 people Mrs. Chen. Now you know. And now you can fix that. Or Sarah, my last really long book, I was reading through it and, there was somebody who was introduced for one sentence in chapter 3 who was named Sarah, and then all of a sudden Sarah is this really important person later on in the book. They're not the same person. There are plenty of names in the ocean. You don't need to have 2 people named Sarah in your book. Don't let the AI do that to you. Now that your developmental audit is done, we can go deeper. The next layer of the triangle. Find sections with too much telling versus showing. You can do this chapter by chapter. You can do this all the book at once. That's up to you. 20 most overused words in the book. 20 most overused phrases. Some of these will make sense. Some of these will not. If your story, the one character, and then the name is that overused word, that doesn't do you much good. You can say, give me the 20 most overused phrases in the book that are not intentional pet names. Unless you're like, hey, I want to know how many times he calls her baby girl. And then you find out that it's 560 and you're like, geez, that's a lot. Maybe you want to vary those up. But if you're, 20 most overused words in the book, and the top 3 are the character names that are in the book the most, that's not going to be super useful to you. So if you want to give me the list of the 20 most overused words in the book, remove the names of the characters from your list, you can do that too. I've done that. It's helpful. Because we don't need to know that Marcus is used 500 times in a 200,000 word book. Of course it is. That's his name. He's the main character. Do all characters speak in a way that makes sense for their characters, and does it all sound natural? This is really important because you don't want someone who has really formal, stilted language all of a sudden being like, yo babe, what's up? Like, if your character starts with yo babe, what's up in the beginning, and then we're progressively keeping that all the way through the book, that's awesome. I love your character. But if your character's like, hello darling, I love you so much, you're wonderful, will you come to the soiree with me? That's great. I'm glad that your character speaks like that. But if your character is all of a sudden like, babe, go get me a sandwich, 2 chapters later, we got issues. Do your sentences have variety in their structure and rhythm? Now, you don't want all your sentences being really long. Make them choppy. Make them short. Make them longer. Make the variety happen. Make the rhythm happen. It helps with the reading flow. It makes it a more interesting story. I'm sure you've read books where all the sentences are very, very, very long and you're like, oh my god, what is happening here? You don't want that. Nobody talks like that. Nobody writes like that. So when the AI gives you a suggestion, like there's too much telling, for example, have it give you examples of rewrites or just have it rewrite it. With Claude, I'm like, okay, where is there too much telling? Great. Fix it. And that's fixed. Great. And then you're like, hey, you know what? You're still not showing enough. Do it again. And then Claude's like, sure, I can do that. If you give it something specific, though, it does an even better job. So if you're like, give this section more dialogue. I don't feel like they hate each other enough. Make them hate each other. That at least gives it more to work with that you want. Now we're going to go down the triangle again. So check for grammar and punctuation errors. Remove any repetitive words. I do this chapter by chapter. I also keep a spreadsheet of running words that it uses a lot. This part of that 20 overused words, 20 overused phrases, it goes into my spreadsheet. You can do 100 overused phrases. You can give me the top 100 used words in this book, and I'll give it to you. You'll get things like that and but maybe you'll see that, hey, you use something like furrowed quite a bit. Furrowed brow is really annoying. You may see spine used quite a bit. Chill running down the spine, tingling the spine, shooting up her spine. Those kind of things. If you just search for spine, because the AI told you that spine is a very overused phrase, then you'll know that spine is there, and you can search for it, and you can fix it, versus focusing on things like tingling spine. Tingling spine may only be in there 3 times, but spine itself may be in there 56 times. The AI varied it up, but spine is still going to be something that stands out to readers. You'll want to go through and do your own repetitive word search. We are closer to being done. Now I want you to read it line by line. You're not going to read it like a reader would. You're not skimming anything. You're not enjoying it right now. If you enjoy editing, you're amazing, and I love you for that. I don't. So you are going to look for awkwardness, punctuation, grammar, your quotation marks being off, your spacing being off, like literally the lines, the spacing for them. You're going to make sure that words aren't jumbled together. You're going to make sure that a period has a space after it before the next letter. Those kind of things. Random hashtags that Claude puts into your book, or generally any AI, but Claude does it a lot. Random bits of prompt that the AI put in that got left in. Take those out. You do not want somebody reading a book and being like, do you want me to continue? Like Claude does. And you're like, oh God, that should not be in my book. It doesn't need to be in there. We need to take the time. You've now done one complete read through, as an editor would. Now I want you to have it read out loud, or I want a program to read out loud to you, because your eyes are going to miss things that your ears won't. Now you've fixed everything that you possibly can. I want you to read it again, but I want you to read it like a reader. I want you to fall back in love with it. I don't want you to end this book where you're hating it. I've been there. I honestly have. And there are books that I wish that I had read right after reading them. So I used to write a lot, and I always got told, hey, if you fall off the horse, get back on. I related to that, where, as long as you're not needing to go to the hospital, if you fall off the horse, get back on, because you're going to hate it after if you don't. You're going to be afraid of it. You're not going to want to do it. I don't expect you to be afraid of writing ever, but I want you to still love it. You spent time on these characters. You spent time on this book. I want you to go in and be like, okay, I'm just going to read it because I love this book. And I want you to go, oh, and I want you to go, oh, that was so sweet. And I want you to go, okay, I love this part. I love when he did this. I love when she smacked him. Those kind of things. I love when she stood up for herself. I love when she was like, no, you don't get to do that to me. I love when he was like, hey, you know what? I would burn the world down for you. Those kind of things, I want you to fall back in love with. And again, I write romance for the most part. So that's where all of my background is going to be. And that's why I'm like, my characters are going to hate each other right now. And I want them to hate each other. And then they don't hate each other. And oh, it's so cute. Or they still hate each other, but they need to work together because they have to go save the world. Oh, it's so cute. Fall back in love with your book, please. Don't leave it on, ugh, I never want to see this thing again. Even if it takes you like a week of not looking at it to fall back in love with it, that's fine. This does not happen all at the same time. And this is not a sit down and get this done all at once, because I want your brain to have space between the different parts. That way you can look at it fresh. Now we're going to do those marketing things. Blurbs. We're going to make some, we're going to mash them together. We're going to find one that we really like. Our taglines, our marketing hooks. our list of trigger warnings for the front of the book. And then you're done. Now you can submit it to an editor. If you want a human editor to really go through it again. I wouldn't, but if you really, really want a human eye on it, then go submit it to an editor. My path is, hey, I got all this done. The cover's done. It's been done. My cover's normally done in chapter 1, just because I play with the covers while the AI is actually generating the prose. But now I can upload it to Amazon, or you can send it to your agent or a publisher, or submit it to a short story contest, or put it up on your website, or put it up on Wattpad, I think is one of them. I don't know. But whatever you do with it, now you can do it because you're done and you can get ready for the next book. And see, that's kind of my process. Yes, it's involved. Yes, it's tedious at times. But by the end, your book is super polished. You have a really nice, solid story that you can be proud of, that you can be really happy with. And, your process may differ from mine, and that's okay. I want you to find your own process. I want you to find your own way. This is just to get you started. All right? So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for going through this with me. Enjoy editing. I really hope you do. At least find some part of it that you enjoy. Even if it's, hey, I completely demolished this one section that was really annoying me. Or, hey, I got this fight scene back together. And I hate writing fight scenes, but the AI helped me with it. All of those things are really important, and I want you to do them, and I want you to enjoy editing at least one part of it. And I don't want you to hate your book when it's done. So, very important. Go back and read it. Fall back in love with it, please. Alright. I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great weekend.